Good morning. Welcome, everybody, to the third installment of the Before the Buzzer podcast. Today, we'll be going over a few things NBA, as we always do. We'll be talking about some money to do with the bubble, the NBA's free agency situation, the Players Association's kind of disgruntled view on when the season's starting. And then we'll talk about a few other things that we don't want to disclose just yet. So let's start out talking about how the NBA lost a lot of money by kind of not having a regular end of the season. They also, I have some figures here. They recouped a lot of money. They prevented a billion and a half, $1.5 billion in losses by having the bubble if they were to not, opposed to if they were to not have playoffs. So they spent $180 million over the 4 months to set up and operate the bubble campus. This is from Forbes. And they played 172 games, and it prevented the league from losing $1.5 billion in expected revenue, probably from commercials, sponsors, etc., tied to national and local television revenue via pre-existing contracts. So I think it's kind of crazy. Also, an estimated $200 million of what they actually did lose. I think they lost 10% in projected revenue from if the season were to resume regularly, and a fifth of that was from the China situation earlier in the year. So that wasn't necessarily anything to do with COVID, but it's just kind of crazy. They lost a good amount of money, and they're also trying to take 40% from the players, and they're trying to lower the salary cap 40% off of a 10% total loss. What do you guys think about that?
I think it's a bit outrageous to ask the players to cough up 40%, because the business, each NBA team is a business, and I think the business owner should be taking the biggest hit.
Mm-hmm.
I definitely agree with that. I mean, it's not the players' fault that COVID happened, and you happen to air the bubble during summer months where people are out doing things. It's also not in the players' control. I don't think it's necessarily anybody's fault that the NBA took such a big hit here, besides you can argue the China thing. But for all COVID-related stuff, yeah. Besides, I mean, I don't think it's anyone's fault. What you can blame one game on the players during the sort of walkout for Black Lives Matter, and then if you log into that situation,
I wouldn't call it the players' fault either. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly.
They took a stand against something, probably an absolute necessity in the time. I mean, what are you going to do? Just have something like that happen and then say, all right, let's go take a team of mostly this demographic of people and just go play basketball? I think it was Kyle Korver has been a big stand-up guy in terms of this whole thing the whole time. And I watched a video of him talking about it, and he was like, it was George Hill and I forget who else it was. Another guy from
Brown.
Sterling Brown. Yeah, Sterling Brown had his own situation kind of situation with the police a few months beforehand. He still has an ongoing open case with I think it was Milwaukee PD, and then basically Kyle Korver's been a big part of kind of getting this team to take a call to action, so to speak. And I think that's kind of necessary as a white male in an environment that's dominated by, non-white males. It's kind of his job to make sure he stands up for what he believes is right, because he's not necessarily the oppressed group, but he kind of needs to act like he is to prove that he's standing in solidarity with his teammates and just the whole kind of country as a whole.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, going back on, it's not like I was placing, sort of fault on any of the players. So I guess I was saying, because it is technically their choice, but I do think, it needed to be done, and I doubt the NBA would have repercussions for it. So,
I mean, the NBA has, sorry to cut you off, but these players are such a large platform, they can make the most noise, and make the most buzz about what they believe in. And if that means, not playing, then that is their choice. I mean, they ended up playing because the NBA did threaten to take away a large amount of their salary, which I think is unfair. But But that's just the way the league is. It's a business, and the businessmen don't want to lose their money.
I was about to say, I mean, because they're doing the same thing again for stuff that the players practically have no control of. No one predicted this was going to happen. It was the NBA's choice to shut down the league, or the U.S. government.
Rudy Gobert.
Actually, yes. So just take away Rudy Gobert's salary for the next 10 years, and that'll make up for it.
It would offset it. He gets paid too much.
Yeah, that's true.
Anyway. Yeah, also, the NBA didn't lose any revenue from the canceled games where the players walked out because those games were played. It was just delayed a little bit. So we can't forget about the fact that nothing was canceled. It was postponed. And that's like, they didn't lose money from that. They got their sponsors, got the next game. Like, it was what it was. Of course, they could try to say, well, but that's not even an issue. It's not about inside the bubble. It's about next year, the team owners who are used to making a ludicrous amount of money off of something they aren't even capable of doing, which is playing the sport of basketball at a high level. They're used to making a ridiculous amount of money, and they don't want to lose that, which is ridiculous because these players, these team owners are nothing without their players. So to take 40% from them just to offset any hit you might get is crazy.
Yeah, I mean, everyone is going to suffer financially from the situation, and that's just, it's the unfortunate part about it. This situation that they're in was in nobody's control, but 40% is heavy. I mean, I could see maybe 20 or 15%, but to take that large sum of money from the players who are the team, I mean, there's no business without the players, like you mentioned. So why come at them with 40%? That just seems extreme to me.
Right. A 10% cut across the board seems most fair. I mean, you think about it, you do the math. A 40% cut there means that there is 4 other, if they're equally, I mean, the biggest part of a team's expense is probably the players. The arena costs so much and all that. But, I mean, there's players making $30 million a year. And if these teams, there's a single player making $30 million a year on almost every team. So, I mean, it's kind of crazy to think that there's some sort of possibility that they need to take 40% from the players.
Right, and for like the role players, like for example, Rondo made $2.1 million this past year. If next year they signed another minimum, 40% of $2.1 million, that's a pretty sizable cut compared to the contract.
Right, that's close to like $1 million. That's like $1.4 million.
Right. Rondo was a bad example because he's been paid. He's been in the league for a while. But, these upcoming players, that's fighting their way into the league, finally got their first, contract. It may be small, but they're depending on that money to, provide for their family and make sure everybody lives comfortable, take care of who they got to take care of. And taking 40% is a large sum of money, and it'll affect their plans drastically.
Exactly. And if these players don't have, coming into the league, whatever, and they are not quite set financially with a financial advisor or anything, or spending their money a little recklessly, they might have planned on being like, hey, I'm making between 2 and 4 mil this year, and now I'm only making between 1 and 2 mil. What am I going to do? I can't manage this.
Yeah, I think that can't really be understated. I just can't even. It's kind of ridiculous to try to take that much from the players to recoup losses that aren't their fault. It's nobody's fault. 10%, like I said, 10% cut across the board. That offsets the 10% cut elsewhere. If you use less on marketing or whatever. I understand there's things you can't cut. You can't get the arena to charge you less for the lease. Right? But you can you can spend less on marketing. You can spend less on marketing. You can spend less on team resources. If you had a meeting with the players and asked, okay, would you rather have us take a 10% or a 20% cut from your resources and your training staff so maybe you have less resources to improve your game, or would you rather take a 40% cut on your salary? I think everybody would rather, because a lot of people work with private coaches anyway. I think a lot of people would prefer to have a cut in that aspect because coaching isn't such a cutthroat thing where oh, you're here and then if we release you, you're screwed. Coaches come and go a lot. So I think almost across the board they would agree that they would prefer to not get a 40% cut in their salary because, I mean, in the last 10 years, like that's erasing almost 10 years of progress. Because it's not like, oh, we'll cut your salary by 40% for 1 year, and then next year we back up and it'll, exponentially increase like it was in the past. It's just not how it works.
Right. And like I think professional athletes are pretty responsible with their money, at least in the NBA. I watched those videos how like these rookies are spending their first million, and they seem pretty responsible with the money. But like you said, like a lot of them pay for like personal chefs, personal coaches. And plus, like, they're athletes. They had to train 18, 19 years without any paid-for coaching. So I think they can handle having to let go of those employees. But, I mean, look at it at this side. Those employees make, I don't know, $50,000, $60,000 a year. You cut them off, then they're without a job, and they don't have that stash pile like NBA players do. So I think for them to cut out employees is also pretty disrespectful, and it could hurt them in a much more drastic way than it would hurt the players. I think the owners just gotta man up. I mean, they're billionaires. I mean, just take your losses. Just take it. I mean, because it's out of your hands, out of the players' hands, out of the training coach's hands, how like all this shit went down. But they just gotta eat their words and just take the loss.
Most businesses had to take their own loss. Like any normal business that isn't a professional sports team. I mean, yeah, they got some government relief, but.
And if their losses are too much that they can handle, then sell the team. You have $1 billion asset on your hands. Just sell the team if you're so worried about your money.
Right, exactly. So the salary cap set for the 2019-2020 season was $109 million. So $40 million. Like, for example, Joe Lacob, the owner of the Warriors, who are like not even top 5 in most valuable, or they're just barely top 5 in the most valuable teams in the league in terms of like what they're valued at if they were to be sold, has $1.2 billion. Steve Ballmer has way more than that. Mark Cuban has more than that. Like, these team owners, Michael Jordan has more than that. Like, I just don't think it's that ridiculous to say, look, these players are what make us our money, and I, as an owner, am going to take that $40 million hit on my, $1,000 million net worth. I mean, $1 billion is 1,000 million. You can't take 40 of that and say, okay, whatever.
Yeah, and owning an NBA team, it's like an investment. It's like investing in the stock market.
They're gonna make that money back without a doubt.
Exactly. Like they'll make it back in a few years. Even if you're the Charlotte Hornets, they're gonna make that back in a few years. Like.
Right, because Terry Rozier is a beast.
Dude, I'm coming to every Charlotte Hornets game to watch Terry Rozier and Cody Zeller go off.
Devontae Graham's actually good, but
yeah, and PJ Washington's looking nice, but.
Yeah. So now let's move on to the actual subject of free agency. So it was supposed to start, and we misquoted 2 podcasts ago, I think, maybe our first episode. It was that we said that free agency was supposed to start on October 19th, so 10 days ago. So I guess it was last episode, maybe. And yeah, we were wrong. It's now proposed to start after the draft. The draft is on the 18th. The free agency period is supposed to start on the 20th, between the 20th and the 22nd, possibly. So, I mean, we already did our predictions for free agency, but I think that it's kind of interesting that they pushed it back a month after like having a set date and then kind of just like not announcing publicly, oh, we're going to move it back. They just erased it and it never started. I assume they communicated.
Yeah, it definitely needed to happen after a draft. That can, like, especially the very bad teams, that could completely reshape it. Like, say, I mean, if I saw Zion Williamson, projected to be one of the greatest players of all time, go to the New Orleans Pelicans, I would maybe, like, reconsider being like, that's not a bad place to go.
Right.
Maybe
Didn't JJ Redick sign there last year?
He did.
Yeah.
Yep.
After the draft, seeing the young talent that went there. Because, like, this year, there could be a complete, like, say the Timberwolves take, say they take a point guard, right? Say they take LaMelo Ball. That is more of an...
Point guard's not
right. But that's also more of an influence for a wing, who's kind of a catch-and-shoot guy or an off-the-ball player, to go to that team who just picked up a guard rather than a wing, so then you can fill out the rest of kind of the rotation. And same thing with like Golden State. I understand they're a poor example because they have all their salary locked up. They're probably not making any signings unless they make a big trade to dump cap. But there's not really anybody that great in free agency, so they don't really need to. So I would say that whoever takes James Wiseman, that's in it, kind of something that would persuade anybody other than a big to go to that team because he's got a lot of talent. He can do a lot from what we've seen in his personal gym videos because he played one game in college. But
in this NBA draft, very interesting because you got two teams that you get the Warriors who have great odds to win the championship or make the finals, and you got the Timberwolves who should be in the playoffs by now. So LaMelo, Anthony Edwards, James Wiseman, they can really end up almost anywhere, which makes this draft so interesting. And I don't know if we discussed this, but LaMelo is officially the number 1 projected pick on the ESPN NBA draft rankings.
Yeah, we hadn't talked about that, but I had seen that.
Mm-hmm. So,
which, I mean, it makes sense if you think about it, right? Because you have two. It's just you can't take Anthony Edwards if you're the Timberwolves, and you can't take James Wiseman. So unless you're trading the pick, you take the best available player that will fit in your system. Because LaMelo can play point guard, he's huge, right? But D'Angelo can also play point guard, so they could share maybe the playmaking load. They share the scoring load, share the playmaking load, and then Karl-Anthony Towns obviously fits in there somewhere in a scoring role as well. I think that's their best bet, just because I think that a guy like D'Angelo Russell shouldn't be taking the entire playmaking load for a team. So to throw in another guy who can take that off of him at times, like LaMelo, would be good. Anthony Edwards is a great scorer and he's a great defender, but I don't know if that's exactly what you want right now if you're them. And Anthony Edwards and James Wiseman obviously isn't their choice because of Karl-Anthony Towns, the top 5 big men in the league.
Yeah, I mean.
Yeah. So I'll go ahead.
Yeah. So, I mean, if I'm Timberwolves, I'm not flipping the pick, which personally I think they should. You gotta go with LaMelo. There's just no other option that fits. Well, actually, no. I could argue you could go with Anthony Edwards still.
Yeah,
actually.
I think Anthony Edwards is a better fit, because he reminds me of a less polished Donovan Mitchell. I'm not saying he's gonna reach that potential, but his game reminds me a lot like that. I think he's a solid 6'7", if I don't believe. Hold on, let me just double check it. Actually, no, he's 6'3". My bad. Yeah, he's 6'3".
I was gonna say I don't think he's very tall.
But he has a very high jump shot, much like KD. His jump shot reminds me a lot like KD. And he plays a lot like Donovan Mitchell. So I think he does. So I think potential is there, and I think with D'Lo, D'Lo needs to step up in that playmaking role. He needs to be number 1 playmaker and the number 2 option going on scoring the ball next year for the Timberwolves. I think for D'Angelo to really, because he made the All-Star team a year ago, for him to solidify himself as an All-Star, he needs to pick up that playmaking role and also be a scorer and a threat offensively for the Timberwolves. And I think Anthony Edwards would fit nicely beside him. But LaMelo has the highest trade value out of anybody on this list because he has the most potential and he's the most intriguing prospect that we've seen. Or that is in this draft class. He's 6'8", he can handle, he can pass. His jump shot is a bit of a concern.
It's but overall, but it goes
in like the EuroLeague competition, in like the stats of the EuroLeague, it's a lot different than college, which most scouts look at, because they move the ball a lot more in the EuroLeague and the competition.
And you're playing against full-grown men.
Right, but like comparing that to the college, it can be a little difficult. So definitely a throw up between Anthony Edwards and LaMelo Ball.
So interestingly enough, actually, before anybody else jumps in, Anthony Edwards on Google, almost everywhere. NBA.com he's listed as 6'3", which is actually the same as Donovan Mitchell, but I think that's because of the NBA's new measuring protocol where they measure you without shoes. Anthony Edwards everywhere else, ESPN, Wikipedia, which isn't really that reliable, but 24/7
like
Sports,
right?
24/7 Sports, GeorgiaDogs.com, so University of Georgia, or whatever. He's listed as 6'5", so that's 2 inches taller than Donovan Mitchell. And Donovan Mitchell's 6'3", so he's the height of a point guard, but he plays a lot bigger than that, which is how he can run the two. And I think that Anthony Edwards being 6'5", he's an inch taller than Dwayne Wade. He's an inch shorter than Kobe. I mean, those were guys who you never questioned their size at the two, right? You never really said, oh, Dwayne Wade's got a disadvantage because he's undersized, because he played bigger than that. He played, his heart's 6'10", you know what I mean?
He had the most blocks of any shooting guard in NBA history over the course of his career, so I think he did all right for being a little undersized.
Right, and that's just hustle. And I think that Anthony Edwards has the potential to be that kind of player. Anybody who's good on defense, who's renowned for their defense, has a big heart and a desire to work hard to win, and I think that Anthony Edwards has that. So I think that his height shouldn't really be a barrier for any team necessarily, unless you're the 76ers, because you just want to get the tallest guy you can. Doesn't matter if they can shoot or not.
If you're the 76ers, that's all you want. You want height. You don't want shooting.
You got to be at least 6'7".
You're like, we don't need passing. We got Ben for that.
You got to be at least 6'7" to see the floor. Otherwise, it's a chest on the bench. So the NBA players, they don't want to play in December, supposedly.
I don't blame them.
This says NBC Sports says substantial faction of, I think it's supposed to say fraction, but of NBA players reportedly want to start season in January, not December. So welcome to the public leagues looking to gain leverage portion of the negotiation between the NBA Players Union and the league. So the Players Union is saying that they want to start the season on January 18th, Martin Luther King Day, with a free agency commencement of December 1st rather than the 20th of November. So free agency wouldn't change a lot, a week and a half, but a lot would change with how the season works. I mean, they're originally that's almost a month later than the season was going to start before. I think the NBA is trying to kind of shorten the offseason and shorten the season altogether for a few years to get it back to the October start date.
Right.
So they'll probably try to go until maybe they were proposing a 72-game season with a shorter offseason. I think after a few years that would set it back to the offseason is in the middle of the summer, which I think the players would obviously like more than having, maybe September, mid to late September to January offseason, because that's not very much fun. Even if you're in LA, it's not the nicest time of the year. But obviously the players are prioritizing time with their families right now because they've been away from them for so long. And even if they had their family in the bubble, it was just their immediate family, not their extended family. And it's not home. It's a suite, no matter how nice it is. It's not home. So.
Right. And they were, so for a team to win the NBA finals, to go to the finals, they usually have like 2.5, 3 months off. I think they only have like a month and a half this time around, if it would, to start in December, because I think the last game of the finals was like the 17th to the 16th of October, and then starting it December, I think 22nd was the date, or Christmas maybe. That's only like
22nd,
22nd, yeah. So that's only 2 months, and especially like Danny Green has stated that LeBron doesn't want to play in December, which I'm not gonna fully believe that unless I hear it from LeBron or even see it from him. But for someone like LeBron going into his 18th season, I'm going to turn 36, and he's on such a strict body usage program that he wants that extra month, or wants that extra couple weeks in his break so he can perform at a high level start of next season.
Right. LeBron's physical kind of attributes are brilliant, the way that he trains. He trains so he's not playing himself into shape like Shaq used to, for example, but his workout protocol is designed to have him in peak physical condition in June when the NBA Finals are. So he's literally only getting better and better, and him wearing down is not really a factor because he's either staying consistent or getting even better physically as the season progresses. And he already has to adjust everything. But not having that offseason time that he's used to, I mean, he's used to a short offseason compared to the Hornets, but he's not going to get the amount of time that he thinks he needs. The NBA wants to start on December 22nd, obviously, because they're going to put games on Christmas Day, which is going to generate an estimated extra $500 million in revenue. But the NBA players say, screw that. I want my offseason. I don't care if you want to put games on Christmas. Just because Christmas Day games sell doesn't mean I need to get a month of my offseason cut. I need to recover, especially teams that were in the finals. So the Miami players haven't really said much, but I mean they're probably willing to go back to work whenever. They're a team of dogs, but LA,
right, and also
the older players that were in the finals are really gonna want.
I'm thinking about I mean, almost every team plays on Christmas, right? Like, there's a lot of games on Christmas.
They
If I'm
usually
not
put like
mistaken.
13 games on Christmas or something.
Yeah,
Or like
13
11.
games. I mean, if you were in the on the teams at the right times or the wrong times, you played and if you're like a veteran, you played probably 13 to 15 Christmases straight, and that's being away from your family, and
Mm-hmm.
being home for Christmas Eve and Christmas Day, like that. Like, I'm sure players want that.
Exactly. I
Because
agree.
LeBron ever since he's been in the league for 17 years straight, he's playing on Christmas Day.
Right, because it sells.
Right. And plus, LeBron's always been a very marketable player, as we all know. So, yeah, so of course they're going to schedule him for Christmas Day.
Exactly. I see where both sides are coming from here. I don't think the players are making a very, like, demanding request. Like, the NBA is going to lose that money. See, and that's where I see that's fair to the NBA as a whole in general. They know that that's a big money grab right there, is having games on Christmas Day. So, of course, they don't want to lose on that. But at the same time, the players, they shouldn't have to go back and play that early. I think January is like it'll be a perfect start date. It'll give them a good amount of off season things, and then you can slowly adjust things back to normal. So you can start having your Christmas Day games again next year, probably even. Like
Yeah.
1 year without games on Christmas isn't going to kill the NBA.
I would agree, and I think that the NBA, like executives, they think that they're doing the right thing by trying to mediate the monetary losses of the league to possibly not make it so you have to lower the salary cap so much. Because I'm sure that they're going to want an official start date before they decide when free agency starts. I think because free agency date is moving with the season, with the start of the season. So it's supposed to be November 20th and then December 22nd. But then the players proposed January 18th and December 1st, respectively, for the start of the season and free agency. So I think that the executives think that they're doing the right thing in terms of getting the players the money they deserve. But I think the players are like, look, I don't think it needs to be one way or another. It's not a black and white situation. There's a gray area. It's very nuanced. And I think that the team owner should probably take a little bit of a hit, and also the players should be able to start when they want to. I mean, worst case scenario, the thing that's going to happen if the players start is a lot of star players are going to say, I'm not playing until January.
Exactly.
And
That's people might be skipping those Christmas Day games that the NBA try to get money on. We're going to see Andrew Wiggins and Draymond Green representing the Golden State Warriors when you're expecting the Splash Brothers to be there.
I think Steph Curry and Klay Thompson will probably play because they've both been out for so long. They've been resting for almost a year. But that's not to say that they would. I'm just saying I think that they would. And strategically speaking, if it wasn't a social justice movement to not play, which it isn't at this point, it just seems like it's just a rest thing. I think you'd see everybody in the Golden State Warriors kind of give it their all for that first month where nobody else is playing to get a better seeding because they know that they have something to prove, and they're looking strategically. It seems like it would be a good idea for them to all play because they've all had so much rest, and they could get a leg up on the Lakers who don't have LeBron playing, or anybody really. The Bucks, if Giannis decides not to play, he probably will because he's Giannis and that's just what he does. But
he's a dog.
Yeah.
Right, and also, like, if the NBA wants to take players' salary and they also want them to start early, you can have, if you have a good amount of players who want to sit out, okay, listen, you can sit out until, was it January 18th or January 1st?
18th.
Yeah, January 18th. Okay, you can sit out for this month, but we're taking a higher cut from you than any of these other players.
Right, because you're under contract to play.
Which I think it's one of those things where it's like, okay, you play every game that you can until January 18th, or you don't play at all, and then we'll start paying you January 18th. So I think to come to the medium with that, but like we don't really know like the numbers of who really wants to play or who really doesn't want to play. So that could kind of they could find a medium like that and then work out a deal, but it's still up in the air for sure.
Yeah. I would agree.
I think it's a great middle ground for both.
I mean, that's what they were going to do if the players decided not to do the bubble. They're under contract to play. It's a contract. It's not called a contract because it's not binding. It is binding. You're supposed to play unless you can't, like Steve Nash's back injury. or whatever, or the coach decides not to play you. But if the coach says, I want you to play, and you decide not to play, you are breaching your contract, and therefore they have the right to take money from you because they signed, they're paying you $30 million a year to play this many games. If you're healthy, you're supposed to play 82 games. Of course, coach's decision to load management and whatnot, that's a different story. But if you're deciding to sit out a third of the season or a quarter of the season or whatever it might be, you deserve a quarter of your pay cut according to them. So I can see both sides of it, definitely, because they're all humans and they're all just trying to do what's best for whatever. The executives are trying to do what's best for the league and trying to find a happy medium with players, whereas the players want to do what's best for them because they know that they are what makes the money.
Mm-hmm.
So
like the salary cap's going to be lowered and stuff. I'll just jump back to free agency real quick. I forgot to mention that the Lakers are actually trying. So the Lakers bought out Luol Deng so to stretch out his contract, so they had money to sign players in the trade for AD. They're trying to write off his contract or his situation as a career-ending injury, so the NBA will cover the dollars that they owe Luol Deng.
Yeah, it's going to be a weird couple of years.
Yeah, it was a little late for free agency, but I thought I'd add that in.
Yeah, that's interesting. So what I find interesting is that a lot of the star players probably don't have to worry about their like star players like Kevin Durant, LeBron James, and Steph Curry. They don't need they don't need to worry about their salary being cut by 40% because they make so much money on like shoe deals. For example, Kevin Durant, $35 million in endorsements in 2019, most from his Nike deal. He's got a $300 million 10-year deal with Nike right now, so $30 million a year. I think it shakes out to like 25 for some years because it's like backloaded or something. Steph Curry makes $20 million a year. LeBron makes 32. So I don't know how much it really matters. Like Zion's played what 12 games?
I was gonna say
before
Zion's,
the bubble, and
Zion's
he's making
played a
$15
handful
million
of
a year.
NBA games. Yeah.
Zion's making more money on his shoe deal. It's the 6th biggest in league history. $75 million for 5 years. It's bigger than James Harden. It's bigger than Dwayne Wade's contract. It's bigger than Russell Westbrook, Kyrie Irving. Like, it's the 6th biggest shoe contract in NBA history. $75 million for 5 years. So like Zion doesn't need to worry about his cut.
Like they're overpaying him now, so they have his loyalty when they move on to negotiations. Because like after this 5 years or 6 years, however long it is, Jordan's going to be already in his pocket.
Right, and he might be the best player in the league by then. Right.
So they may be overpaying him now, but I can kind of see how they would go about it. I disagree with the 2K endorsement 100%, but I won't even talk about that. But yeah, I mean, the star players have all these endorsement deals. Like I read, I don't know how like I'm a truther as to it, but Jason Tatum really only spends his endorsement money. He kind of invests his contract money, which would be a little different once he gets his max. I think it's this year. This year, I think he's gonna get re-signed. It's the year after. It's the year after. My bad.
Yeah, because like Bam, I think so. It's 1 year. They're the same draft class.
Like I think he's eligible for his extension this summer.
Yeah, I believe so too.
Yeah.
But yeah, they got shoe money going on. Like the players who are already established in the league and have been for years, and Zion Williamson don't need to worry about the contract cut so much.
Right. LaMelo just signed a big contract with Puma. We just don't know how much yet, but I bet it was probably $50 million plus for 5 years or something.
It's been rumored to be $100 million in a private jet, but
that's ridiculous.
We don't really know yet.
This man's not even in the league.
I think the official numbers will come out when he gets drafted, because like, well, no, he can actually. I don't know, because you can still take endorsement deals.
He's a professional basketball player. He has been.
Yeah.
So.
Right.
What happened to Julian Newman? That's my question.
Who?
Weird. Julian Newman.
Who?
I don't know. Was it a football player?
He's 5'7". He was just a popular Instagram basketball player, pretty much. But I'll put him in the tags of the video. Maybe he'll see it. Maybe he looks himself up. Julian Newman. Yeah, LaMelo's a 19-year-old that's gonna possibly have access to a private jet.
No,
That's crazy.
I think he's 18.
He's 19. His
19?
birthday's August 22nd, 2001.
Oh, okay.
He's legit younger than me. He's younger than me, and he just signed a $100 million shoe deal with a private jet. I can wear shoes.
I can wear shoes.
I'm just as
exactly.
capable of wearing shoes as LaMelo Ball. And why don't I have a $100 million deal on a private
If I
jet?
get paid,
Because my hair is not as cool.
If I get paid $2 a post to wear Pumas, dude, I'd post 10 times a day.
I post 100 times a day. What's wrong with you?
Exactly.
I'd just be like, you never said which account, so I just make a burner and just post Puma shit all day long. For 8 hours, I just make posts about Puma shoes.
Well, like, I'll stay loyal and only wear one brand of shoe if they're sponsoring me to pay just that brand of shoe. Sure.
Shit, I'll wear one pair of shoes. Only one shoe. I'll hop around on one leg. I don't care. Ride around in a wheelchair and have that one foot propped up. Be like, yeah, I'm signed. It's just, it is crazy the amount of money some NBA players make on shoe deals. And that's not, I mean, that's shoe deals. That's, everybody has a Body Armor sponsorship now, or Gatorade, or whatever.
Hey,
Body
Quick
Armor
Milk
Superior.
sponsored to some chocolate milk, if I remember correctly.
So our goal of this podcast is to get sponsored by Body Armor. Because let me tell you what.
They're paying out.
Body Armor is better for you than Gatorade. Don't drink Gatorade. Body Armor only.
Unless Gatorade wants to sponsor us, in which case we will cut that.
No.
No, that's the thing, yeah.
Because Gatorade is false marketing. That's just water and sugar. False marketing. Not good for you.
Electrolytes.
No.
Electrolytes. You heard of electrolytes, Jeffrey? Look it up. Ask any 35-year-old man who saw the Michael Jordan commercials. It's the best. It's God's nectar.
Yeah, but what about the Michael Jordan commercials of him eating at McDonald's?
We may
Also
not have a
God's
huge
nectar.
platform, but I would be a sellout.
We may not have a platform at all, but
I would be a sellout to Body Armor if I could have one free drink a day.
that's a lot of Body Armor.
That is a lot of Body Armor.
Yeah.
We all want one free drink a day.
That's
Though. Like,
30 a month.
Okay, not to. I was thinking more like 365 a year. You got to think big picture here. But I was thinking like not to like negotiate a contract that hasn't been offered, but I think we all deserve one a day. Like if Jeffrey is the only one that gets one a day, I'm going to kick him off the podcast, and therefore you're sponsoring the podcast. Therefore, I get the drinks.
Well, boys, I'm on the way working out a deal. They sent me a limited edition John Morant Body Armor sports drink.
Oh my god, you won it in an Instagram giveaway.
No, they sent it to me. They said, "Thank you for being a Body Armor supporter.
Thank you for tagging a friend in the comments and following the 3 pages we made you follow in the giveaway details." Yeah, I know how it goes. Okay.
All right. So
back to basketball. Rockets.
Yes.
You want to take this one away, Jeff?
Yeah. Wait. You want to take it away?
I said.
Or you want me to take it away?
You take it away.
I'll take it away. All right. So they have not found a general manager yet, but they have hired Stephen Silas, who has been Steven, right?
Probably. I don't know. The only person with the name Stephen is Stephen Curry, but
that's right.
That's
Steven Silas, and I think that's a good start in their direction because they don't have the assets that they have are the assets they're most likely going to be stuck with because they said they're not trading Westbrook nor James Harden, and I don't really think how you can make a change to your roster that will put you in playoff contention because I mean they got bounced in 5 by the Lakers, like that's really not that's nowhere close to being playoff like in the second round, and so Steven Silas worked beside Rick Carlisle.
There you go, buddy.
Carlisle. And he is very good at making the best out of his players, like you saw in 2011. I mean, that Dallas Mavericks beat a super team in the Miami Heat, with Dirk being the only real star in that team. You saw players like Jason Terry, Jason Kidd, Tyson Chandler step up and be the best version of themselves and bring it home for Dallas. Now, I think he can do the same being the Rockets coach. But I still think they need to find one of those pieces, and I do think they do need to trade Westbrook. I don't think the Westbrook-James Harden experiment is going to work.
If they're not willing to move on from either of those people, I don't care who you're getting in as head coach. They're not making the conference finals for the next however many years Harden and Westbrook are together. Like a head coach, it can make a difference on a team, sure. I don't think it's big enough to push a team over the edge when it comes playoff time. Like, they should just move on from either Westbrook or Harden. They need to move on from one or the other.
Harden's one of the best scorers ever. I'd probably move on from Westbrook.
I mean, I would too, but I'm just saying that it is an option where you could try moving on from Harden.
We saw what happened the last time a team moved on from Harden and kept Russell Westbrook, okay? Nothing good.
You don't move Harden. If I was a Rockets general manager and if the Bucks offered me Antetokounmpo, I would say no.
All right, I don't know about that one.
I would say no because
like James Harden can win games. He's just not in the best situation with his team right now.
I would say no mainly because Giannis is on on his last deal, and like him and Westbrook together, I don't see that either. I would keep Harden at all costs. I wouldn't even entertain the idea unless it's like something outrageous, like more than
LeBron
Giannis
and Anthony Davis,
like more than Giannis.
Anthony Davis and Steph Curry.
Like
three teams.
Like if you get Middleton and Giannis, then I'll talk about it. But I would not trade Harden at all. And the only real other tradable asset I believe is Robert Covington. To get
and even then, what are you gonna do? Get rid of him? Get rid of the tallest guy in your lineup?
Right. Maybe bring in an actual center. I mean, that's a possibility.
Maybe the new coach can bring the best out of Tyson Chandler because he's still on the roster. I think.
Mm-hmm. He is.
Maybe he'll have a resurgence. So.
Yeah, he's 70 years old. Sure.
Hey, it's never too old. Wilt Chamberlain almost came back to the league at 50 and then died of a heart attack, which I find odd, but okay. Illuminati.
Yeah, so that's the thing. If he came back, I'm not sure how much longer he would have been in the league, but.
So, the tallest player on the Rockets is Tyson Chandler at 7 foot. And then Jeff Green at 6'8". Oh no, sorry, Bruno Caboclo. Never mind, he doesn't count. Yeah,
but
it's Tyson
Chandler
at 6'7".
So Bruno Caboclo doesn't.
Yeah, because he's bad, bro. Chill. Don't bring your 2K My League knowledge.
Bro,
into
Tyson
this, okay?
Chandler even play a game last year?
I don't think so.
He's still a proven veteran who can win, be a player on a winning team.
And I don't see why Mike D'Antoni didn't be like, all right, we're down 3-1, let's throw in Tyson Chandler. Like why not? Like why not? You're playing against LeBron and Anthony Davis.
They're probably too dumb to actually let him get any training in during the season, so he just hasn't been training. He's just been eating Hostess cakes in his couch.
I mean, just I don't see why. Like you're in desperation mode. The first 4 games didn't really work out for you. You had one game where Westbrook and Harden both shot very well. I mean, you're gonna have games like the Rockets are gonna have games that they shoot crazy numbers from deep and they're just unstoppable. But that's not playoff basketball, as we've seen year after year after year after year. Their old style. It won them games, but at a 7-game series with a very good team, you can't live and die by the 3. You gotta have other options.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen it work with the Warriors, but they weren't just a 3-point.
Oh no, they're way more than that. Like KD,
they move the ball ridiculous. I mean the 73-9, like pre 73-9 Warriors.
Yeah.
It worked for them, but it was close a few times, and you saw the 73-9 team fail in the finals up 3-1. So,
right.
I think that I'm looking at this site, and it says there's trades that the Rockets can make. It says Daniel House Jr., who's actually a decent role player, for JaVale McGee. I don't think the Lakers have any reason to turn this down. Daniel House, honestly, I think the Rockets would be giving up a little too much because JaVale McGee has been proven to not be able to be a starting center or play full games because he has some health issues. And Daniel House has been a very productive role player for them. Time after time, he's come through.
Isn't JaVale a free agent?
I'm not sure. I'm just looking at this list. But this says Rockets get Kevin Love, Cavaliers get Eric Gordon and Robert Covington. That's not such a bad idea because you're losing 2 shooters, but you're gaining a rebounder and a shooter. And Kevin Love, of course, hasn't played.
And it gets Kevin Love out of Cleveland. I mean, I'm approving this trade.
I think Kevin Love will be depressed because he's in Cleveland, but.
And I heard that the Cavs are trying to work out Obi Toppin, and he's their number 1 on their radar, which Obi Toppin could easily replace Kevin Love. But not easily. I mean, Kevin Love is an all-star. And he's a proven player. But you just put Obi Toppin in that 4 spot next to Drummond because, I mean, Toppin can stretch the floor a little bit, but that's not like shooting ability isn't really what you target. You target his athleticism, his rebounding. I think he's coming out of being a senior, so his body's ready. I think he can mentally ready for the game and deal with an organization like the Cavaliers. I mean, what they don't need is another point guard. So I think.
You want to see a ridiculous trade?
I think that Kevin Love trade makes a lot of sense. I didn't hear about that before this podcast, but I think that does make a lot of sense.
Was it the James Harden one I saw for Ben Simmons? And
no, it's
else?
not. It's a three-way trade between the Knicks, Rockets, and Timberwolves, and the Rockets get Elfrid Payton and Karl Towns. The Knicks get Russ Westbrook and Daniel House, and the Timberwolves get Eric Gordon and Julius Randle. It's almost like the Timberwolves just want to be nice too. Like if the Timberwolves drafted James Wiseman, maybe that would make sense. But like, why else would you want to do that ever? Oh yeah, let's get rid of a top center in the league just to get Eric Gordon, who can shoot sometimes, like 35% from 3, and Julius Randle, who's like a turnover machine point power forward, who is okay for Karl Anthony Towns.
Yeah, no, that would.
I don't really understand why they would ever.
I see that trade happening.
But yeah, I think.
Now,
that Kevin Love one seems the most realistic to me.
Now, I can see maybe a Westbrook to the Knicks deal happening. Maybe probably a 13 would have to come in just for the Rockets to get just some role players around Harden and just go with Harden. Just have Harden by himself as a lone star. Have him put up 35, and then you have pieces around him that can support his play style.
I think you need to let him shoot mid-ranges if he wants to, because you know he'd be deadly from mid-range. He has been in the past.
No, year before, sorry for cutting you off, but the year before Mike D'Antoni showed up, look, James Harden led the league in step-back mid-ranges. Like attempts, field goal percentage, and makes. Yeah.
So, I don't see any reason at all why he shouldn't be working in the mid-range more than he is. Like, they say it's the worst shot, but I'm sorry, you have a higher percentage of making a mid-range than you do a 3, and if you're taking a bad 3 versus, a pull-up mid-range because you just blew by your defender, or like sometimes that's the best option, right? Taking a mid-range because you blow by your defender, and instead of going to the rim or doing a step-back 3, you take the mid-range because the rim's guarded, and the step-back 3 is obviously a difficult shot.
Yeah, we see, in the final, we saw Jimmy Butler abuse the mid-range because that's what NBA teams are targeting their opponents to shoot. Is long mid-ranges. And Jimmy Butler killed the Lakers, or just about, killed everybody in the bubble of the mid-range. You see Chris Paul has been a master of the mid-range ever since he's been in the league. You got other players like CJ McCollum, Kevin Durant, even Klay Thompson.
Right, Steph Curry not as much now as he used to, but he's not afraid to take him.
No, he throw up a 15-foot floater though.
Yeah, exactly. Bingo.
Even like Damian Lillard sometimes. I'd rather have Damian Lillard shoot a 3 than a mid-range, but he does take them and he does make them.
He does.
And there's also another handful. Like Jason Tatum's a good example. He took a little too many last year, and he has more of a balance between mid-range and 3-pointers, but he's also good another mid-range shooter. We saw Kobe. Cody's probably Kobe's greatest aspect of his game when he lost some of his athleticism was his mid-range. He killed kids in the mid-range.
You're forgetting a mid-range killer, Carmelo Anthony, too, my dad.
Yeah, Carmelo Anthony. They're not in the league anymore, but we've seen him kill the game in the mid-ranges, and you guys see that horn?
I did. Yeah. No, but did you just say Carmelo Anthony isn't in the league anymore? Last time I checked, he was on a playoff contending team getting decent minutes.
My bad. I did not. I meant to say, he's not what he used to be. Yep. And, we can see, teams are trying to force Carmelo Anthony to shoot threes, and he looks a little uncomfortable. He does. Let him work in the mid-range. And I think we'll slowly see the mid-range come back because the greatest players find flaws in the defense and then they attack those flaws. Right now, the mid-range is the biggest flaw in the defense because it's paint and 3-pointers.
Yeah. I think that you need to let your star players, your talented scorers, take whatever shot. Like, James Harden wasn't taking no mid-ranges because he thought that mid-ranges were a bad shot. He's taking no mid-ranges because he was told to shoot 3s or drive to the paint.
Right.
That was the coaching plan. That was the plan that D'Antoni drew up. James Harden changed completely his game the year that D'Antoni showed up. It wasn't because James Harden had an epiphany. The coaching style changed, and coaching has a lot more to do with how players play than you might think.
Right.
You saw Steph Curry start shooting exponentially more 3-pointers when Steve Kerr got there because that's just the way that he saw them. He's like, wow, these guys, in practice, he's like, wow, these guys are incredible shooters. Let's put them on the 3-point line.
Right. And James Harden, you have games you go 8 of 11, 8 of 13, 6 of 10, from three. But then you have games he goes 2 for 17, 3 for 18, and D'Antoni's telling him to keep shooting. If he makes 2 mid-range jump shots, his shooting stroke is back, and then maybe he'll make more threes. Like, you got to have a little bit more of a balance. You can't be shooting under 10% from three, taking 20 of them a game, 18, 20 of them a game.
And still not trying to get your stroke back with, and those games, it's like when he's shooting the worst, he shoots the most. Like he's shoot 6 for 10 when he's shooting well, or 8 for 13. But then on a night where he's shooting poorly, he'll shoot the same 13 shots or 15 shots, or he'll be like 5 for 17. Like it's because he's just told to keep shooting. But I think that if you were to step it in a little bit, or like get to the line and start just taking layups and get to the line and see a few shots go in that come off your fingertips and have to sit in the air for a little bit, rather than just layups and like I don't know. I just think
and it was kind of a weird fit to begin with Westbrook, because when Westbrook's hot, his like probably his deadliest aspect of his game is his mid range. He'll blow by for a layup 3 times in a row. The next 3 possessions, he'll stop on a dime, pull from mid range, bank it off the glass. Like that's one of his best, things he has in his arsenal. And for Mike D'Antoni to coach him, it seems a little odd. I mean, he didn't have Westbrook shooting 3, which is good, because Westbrook wasn't shooting nearly as much this year than he was with the Thunder.
Clank. Don't sound like a gun range in there, but yeah, I mean,
Ben Simmons and Russ Westbrook in the same gym would be scary. No,
I'm glad they brought in a new coach there. I do think that the Rockets will improve just off coaching alone, but like I was saying earlier, it's not going to be some major thing where all of a sudden they're going to be better than the Los Angeles Lakers because they got a different head coach.
Yeah, I mean, I think hold on one second. I think the biggest thing for winning this league is counteracting Anthony Davis. Anthony Davis has been on a horrible team his whole career, and now he's on the best team in the league. And you don't have to just worry about winning regular season games against most teams. You need to worry about if you get to the playoffs. Like, you might have to sacrifice some opportunity to make it to playing the Lakers to be able to beat the Lakers in case you make it.
Right.
If that makes sense. So instead of saying, okay, we're going to play small ball all season because that's how we're going to win 60 games, you got to say, okay, we're going to win 51 games. And if we end up getting to the Lakers, we have some sort of antidote for Anthony Davis's spell, which is him just scoring 30 anytime he wants because everybody else on the other team is way too small to guard him.
Like, and the Rockets are frankly running out of time. I mean, Harden's 31 years old, and he's one of the best scorers we've ever seen play basketball. So, I mean, it's going to be pretty soon where Harden's going to be out of his prime, and he might just be fed up and want to go get a ring and just leave whenever his contract's over. Which I don't know when that is.
I can't necessarily blame. I think he has a few more years. He signed like a 5-year deal a few years ago. I think he has 2 or 3 left. Yeah, it was big. I wouldn't blame him if he left necessarily. And that's because the way that they've struggled and ultimately failed to build a seriously winning team around him. I think that the team that they had with Capella and Chris Paul would have worked a lot better if D'Antoni was not there.
Right.
I think so as well. I mean, we saw Chris Paul.
They should have gotten Tom Thibodeau. Or Kevin McHale. There was nothing wrong with what Kevin McHale was doing. I think he's a good coach, honestly.
Mm-hmm.
He's
but
a good
Chris
analyst
Paul's
too,
shown that he can lead a team. So
yeah, I mean, because they almost won it. I mean, I believe that if Chris Paul didn't get injured, the Rockets would have won that game 7 versus the Warriors, would advance to the finals. Whether they beat Cleveland or not, that's up in the air.
I think they would have beat Cleveland.
Right,
I don't see Cleveland being able to stop everybody on that team.
They were the best scoring team that year, if not second behind the Warriors.
Right. Yeah, I think that's absolutely true. So unless there's some more thoughts on the Rockets or another team that you think has some serious upcoming issues, I think that about wraps it up. So any final thoughts, boys?
I like the trade idea to get Kevin Love out of Cleveland.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea. I feel bad for Kevin
Love.
Depression.
He's a really nice guy. Poor Kevin.
We'll have to talk more about team scenarios later after the draft and free agency.
Yeah, I think that there's only so much to talk about for now, so I think we'll definitely cover that when the opportunity presents itself to talk about some new material in that realm. But I think we did a pretty thorough job of talking about what is actually relevant in the current moment.
Yeah.
So with that said, thank you guys for listening. If you made it this far, if you don't mind, if you enjoyed the content, you can share it, comment, subscribe, leave a like, do all that good stuff. Turn post notifications on. Not that it would probably notify you, because I think suggested notifications actually come through faster than post notifications. So subscribe, hit the bell icon just in case, and we'll catch you guys next time. That's a wrap.